In this video, we're going to explore the economics of Rust. Rust is probably one of the hardest games I've ever played. The learning curve is completely intense, and every single player struggles until they figure out the basics. But it doesn't matter what your skill level is, every single player starts the same. You start naked at the beach, hoping for a chance at survival, lasting long enough into the wipe. But how do you get started? Every single player needs to start farming resources to get going. You have to find a suitable base location to get yourself started, build a base with the resources at your disposal, and take risks in order to progress. But with every reward comes risk of another player trying to take it from you. And eventually you just need something that you can't get anywhere else. So you have to turn to the Rust economy for this. The beauty of Rust is that the players find some way to make this economy happen. There's a basic of supply and demand that echoes across any market economy that you'll see. And you'll find that people can only get them through two ways. They can either trade or they can raid. So let's talk about the first one, trading. Trading is going to be a necessity, especially for players who have certain advantages that other players don't, and players who are looking to secure an advantage early into wipe. There's constantly a demand for farm, especially because this is a high priority resource for building, for conducting raids, and many other tasks that you find in the game. You'll have different types of resources such as high quality metal, diesel, sulfur, maybe metal fragments, that are often high priority resources for players, especially once they hit a certain limit. Now, these players who are asking for these kind of resources will often have a surplus of goods that other players who haven't progressed far enough are willing to get, especially if they can give farm in return. So, for example, weaponry in your arsenal, higher tier workbenches, are often seen as common barter items once you've hit a certain limit, especially because these players probably have progressed to a higher level at this point. And so the thing that they don't want to do is farm, especially because this takes a lot of time, and lower level players who haven't progressed far enough are willing to farm these resources to secure an advantage that they don't currently have. Let's take a look at the economic concept of comparative advantage. This is basically the ability to produce a good or service at a lower cost than other people can do. So maybe, for example, you're based in the snow, where there's an abundance of nodes such as sulfur and metal, and you're lacking cloth, whereas some other player may be in the grasslands, or maybe they have a farm close to a river, and they can grow cloth in abundance. So at this point, you may need to trade because the person with cloth may not have enough metal to continue building, and you need cloth to survive, especially in the cold, where you're often going to get drained of your health. This is the basics of comparative advantage and really functions well in this scenario. You could even take this further by saying perhaps you're near a monument where it's very easy to farm components, and another player is somewhere in the middle of the map where there isn't exactly a monument easy to reach. So maybe they can get something for you that you can't have in exchange for the components that you have a surplus of. And while this may make sense, now you're asking, well, how do I get these items? Well, the vending machine is the perfect function for this, as it's basically a business within the game, either helping players to sell goods to other players for a specific price, or really just helping to function as a barter system with safety so that players can sell specific goods for another good that they need. The game really leaned into this, especially to create more of a functioning economy, with vending machines able to show you key statistics behind your business. For example, you can take a look at the total sales, peak sale hour, sale history, total sold per item, total revenue per item, and customer information such as unique customers that visit your business, repeat customers that you hope to keep selling to, and the best customer who just seems to buy everything off of you. These vending machines can be seen all over the map, especially at different shop fronts that you'll see running across on your journey, and at two safe zone monuments called Outpost and Bandicamp. These monuments usually act as a one-stop shop for many important items to get you started, and you'll often see that each of these items are priced according to their demand. So items in high demand will be marked up, and items in low demand will be discounted down. At a certain point, trading can only get you so many resources, especially when you're doing a one-for-one trade. So when you need something and you just can't get it via trading, well then you gotta go raid. Raiding is a core part of the game. There's nothing you can do about it. There will be people trying to take what you have worked hard to accrue, and you may be trying to do the same exact thing. But regardless, you need to have a strategy. You need to know how much boom you have and how much it will take to actually get the job done. There are in-depth resources on how to calculate this cost. There are different YouTube channels. Rust Labs, for example, is a great website, and it can show you all the different types of things you need to know, from what it actually takes to do damage to certain structures, to the actual crafting cost of different resources that you'll need. For example, armored doors and metal walls have the same HP of 1000, but metal walls are a significantly higher raid cost compared to armored doors. Why that is up to the game designers, but you need to know this, especially before you go into a raid. Going to the actual economics of raiding, you can actually find that a lot of shops are going to be selling items for sulfur, especially because this is going to be one of the core things that you need for raiding, and it's usually one of the harder things to get compared to charcoal, which can easily be burned off of wood. Now, there are other items, for example, such as pipes and tech trash, which are extremely valuable for creating different types of boom, especially the higher grade boom like rockets and C4. By no means do you actually have to start with rockets and C4. For wooden structures, a simple Molotov cocktail can get the job done. For stone and sheet metal doors, you can actually use satchel charges. But once you get to metal walls and armored walls, it becomes a lot harder, and rockets and C4 tend to be your best option, especially because you only have limited amount of time to get things done. Now that you've gathered all the boom that you need to find a target to hit. You need to have a strategy of attack in order to properly gauge how much boom you need and what's the fastest route to core loot that you can take. Scouting is an essential part of raiding, especially to gauge how much boom that you actually have to get the job done. Maybe you need more and you need to craft more. Or maybe you have enough boom but the target doesn't seem that enticing, especially depending on what's inside. This is the proper risk and reward evaluation that you have to do every single time that you raid. The worst part is that even if you do everything correct, you may not find what you're looking for inside. Or you find a gold mine of resources and components that made it all worth it in the first place. But even then, there's something that you have to remember. One of the paramount concepts in raiding is Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Maybe you have insufficient resources to get the job done, but you've already started the raid and it's too late to turn back. Maybe the base defenders come online and they successfully finish your attempt to get a raid. Or even worse, you have counters, people from the outside who hear the raid going off and they want to come take what you have and perhaps finish what you've already started. But even if it can go wrong, it doesn't mean that it stops people from trying. The potential reward of finishing the job and getting everything you ever imagined, an absolute treasure chest of resources and components, will keep people raiding every single time. It's that sort of reward that players dream of, and it's that single motivation that gets the raid going in the first place. This is a brief look into the economics of Rust. The game can get quite intense and very nuanced, depending on your playstyle and what goals you may have for the wipe. But the core basics are still the same. There are going to be raiders trying to raid you, taking what you have, and hopefully you are one of the raiders trying to get a treasure of your own. If you made it all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.